We're changing in real time, y'all. And so are you.
As you're listening to this, we're probably changing.
In fact, you've changed in the time it took to listen to this episode. Okay, I'm ready. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
And welcome back to another episode of Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where our cats scratch in the background. What the fuck? I'm so mad at him, dude. He woke me up at 5 this morning, knocking shit over. Welcome to Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where the only constant is change. I'm Christina.
And I'm Lauren.
And today we are finally back together after a week off, and we're here with a topic of my choosing.
Which I'm excited to hear.
Yes. But first, Lauren, where are you at? Literally and emotionally.
Literally, I am in the new boyfriend's basement.
You mean the bassist?
The future bassist.
The future bassist?
Yes.
Inside joke. You'll have to listen to old episodes to understand. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you this time. You gotta backtrack and listen if you want to know.
So, first of all, I can't say your boyfriend without, giggling.
Neither can I.
It tickles me so much that you have a boyfriend.
What other word is there for it? I'm just like, it sounds so silly, but it's kind of cute.
You're kind of cute.
Oh.
But seriously, why are you in your boyfriend's basement?
I've just been staying there on the weekends lately.
In the basement?
Not in the basement. I'm in the basement because it's where I can get privacy.
I'm just going to let you talk now.
Yeah, so I've just been staying there on weekends, and I don't know, this time it made sense to go there because my aerial classes have changed to Thursday night from 7:30 till 9, which is brutal, by the way.
That's late. I can't do anything social after 8:30 usually.
No, this is rough, I have to admit, but I did have a good class, so there is that.
Nice.
But it's hard to convince myself to go because it's so late.
So you get off super late and you don't feel like going home, so you stay with him?
Yeah, I work from home on Fridays, so actually this week was the first time I thought of it because I have worked here when I worked from home before because we had a massive snowstorm and I couldn't get home then.
That's right. You talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so now I know that setup works. And actually, I feel like it works because I don't know if we've talked about it, but I feel like you may have heard of it. It's a big ADHD thing they call body doubling.
Of course I've heard of body doubling, Lauren.
I figured you had. I just didn't think we'd talked about it. That's why I wasn't going to.
I mean, we haven't talked about it on the podcast.
But yeah, and that's what I realized after working here and even we sat in the same room the first time and I was just kind of is that going to work for me working with us both in the same room or should I find my own spot? And then I realized I was oh, I think that's that body doubling thing. I think it kind of works.
Yeah, I love body doubling.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, I guess, for all two of you.
Yeah, because I don't think we have talked about it.
Well, do you want to explain what it is and why it works for ADHD people?
Honestly, I don't know why it works. I just heard that it is a thing that works for ADHD in particular. And the idea is just if you have to get something done and if you are like us and have trouble focusing, trouble convincing yourself to stay on task, it somehow works to just have somebody in the room with you.
Yeah.
You don't need to be having a conversation. You don't need to be working together. It's just kind of like having a witness or something.
A witness.
That's what it feels like.
In fact, it's better if you don't talk to each other. And that's the problem. For me, I can't body double with just anyone because some people, they just want to talk to me the whole time.
They think that if they're there, they have to be having a conversation or filling time. It's
exactly.
No. You just have to sit there. Do your thing.
Yeah. Love that for you.
So that's physically.
So where are you at emotionally?
Emotionally, I don't know. It's been a rough week and I don't know why.
Well, it's been 2 weeks since I asked you that question.
True. So I guess the first week was good. We didn't record last week because I had another band show. I feel like it's the best one we had. It was so much fun. My mom came into town and saw her first show of mine ever.
Oh my God.
In 5 years of me playing in bands. So she was very excited for that. And that was pretty neat that she got to come out and see it.
Did she dance?
No one danced this time, really. It wasn't as big of a crowd, but they did seem to really like us.
Nice. I know you were worried because there was another band coming on and you were like, oh my God, they're so good.
No, I totally got the wrong information. That's what
Oh.
I thought it was, because it was a group band chat. Like someone said like, oh, this is the group that's going to be after us. And they're like, whoa, we better just like get out of there afterwards. And it sounded like they were intimidated. But apparently the video they saw was so bad that they were just like, we don't want to stick around and hear this.
Oh,
So they were
shit.
actually saying like, no, it's not good. But for the record, I did stay around and listen to a few songs, and they are apparently better than their video led us to believe. They weren't bad. But
Okay, cool. That's very nice of you. I feel like that's band etiquette. You have to stay around and watch the next
yeah,
band.
like at the end, they were there already, and their lead singer came up and was like, oh my God, you guys were so good. That was so great and everything. So I just felt like, of course, like I got to listen to you guys. Come on.
Back when I used to date a musician, not a bassist, it's commonly known that if you leave before the next band, you're assholes.
Yeah.
Like, that's a
exactly.
huge dick move.
Yep. And I know that from my last band too. That's what, even, if we were like super tired, then we're just like, oh, we got to at least stay for like half a set.
How did you feel with your mom there and everything?
It was fine. I didn't get to see her very much because I did, have to work and had to get ready for the show and everything like that. Of course, you want to have a kind of like stage presence. So yeah, I'm going to wear things that are maybe like tighter and more skimpy, I guess is the word, on stage.
Okay.
And so, the first thing, like, even though I'd seen her for dinner the night before, the first thing, my mom shows up at the venue, she has to like comment on my appearance. And I'm like, shut up.
Wait, what did she say?
Oh, she just said like, oh, you look skinny. Are you still eating? I'm like, please stop.
Well, how's that going?
I'm
just going to get right into it.
All right.
Can't avoid it forever, Lauren.
I think I did avoid the last time. I know you were trying to tease that out. I feel like it's kind of gotten worse, and then I would feel more recently it's kind of been stagnant. Like, I don't think, I'm just like on this big downslide or anything.
Would you say you're like maintaining?
Yeah.
Which actually has to do with the topic, by the way.
Oh, great.
Put a pin in that.
But like I said, it feels like things were kind of going worse, and then I've kind of like caught it and I'm staying at the same level. And it just, yeah, I've talked about it a little bit in different places, and it just feels like it's not anything that I'm trying, but I feel like once it happens, like I'm still mentally just in general in a position where something like that happens, and it's just like, yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to do anything to counteract that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to make it happen, but I'm also not trying to stop it.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
100%. It just feels so natural.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel, and like, even when I was feeling a little more positive about my situation, then, I did think of that, and I was like, well, but at the same time, I mean, it's small progress, but I feel like it still is. And the fact that like, there's a whole lot of years where I would have used that and been like, oh, cool, let's just throw myself right into this because we already got a good start.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I'm really proud of you for talking about it, and not just on the podcast, it sounds like. And also, being self-aware enough to realize that it is progress and to name it as progress. Like, that's huge for you.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not trying to just like keep this going and drive it into the ground, but it's just kind of like, I'm okay where I'm at. So if I'd stay there, it's better than nothing.
But back to your show and your mom's comment, that's really frustrating. Like, you're a grown-ass woman.
And especially, yeah, like that's the first thing she says when she sees me, and I'm just kind of like, cool, I get to take that into the show. Thanks.
Gee, why do you have an eating disorder?
Yeah. But anyway, where are you at?
Well, PHP is interesting. It's officially been 2 weeks. I just ended my second week today.
Now, is it the same one you did the IOP earlier?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's a brand new program. They haven't even been open for a year. They're 15 minutes away from my apartment, like really nice.
Yeah.
So I've walked every day except for one day when it was raining. Oh my God, by the way, I got vanity plates.
Oh no.
So this is actually related to the podcast.
Okay.
Did I tell you about this?
Maybe you posted it.
Did I tell you about the podcast connection though?
No.
Okay, so God, this is a really like
because I groan whenever one of my friends gets vanity plates, but I felt like yours were some of the better ones I've seen.
First of all, it's really cheap in Virginia. It's only $10 when you renew your registration, so not exactly a huge splurge. And also, so 2 years ago, I want to say, back when I was doing the podcast by myself, maybe it was 3 years ago, I had a Pickle poll for people to submit mental health related license plate ideas.
Oh, okay.
And I got like 50 suggestions.
Oh, wow.
I'm not even kidding. And the one that I ended up choosing, I couldn't remember who submitted it. And when I went back to check, it was actually my friend who died last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of a really special connection.
Yeah.
It's unwell, and the 2 L's are ones.
Okay.
It's really cute. Fuck, why was I bringing that up? Oh, yeah, PHP. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, I'm really scatterbrained because it's totally exhausting me, like mentally, emotionally, physically. I have no free time, really, except for like a few hours in the evening. And by the time I get home at like 3:30, and I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to do anything, which sucks because I started PHP because I was isolating a lot, which is one of my warning signs that things are going badly. But since starting PHP, it's been good for me, but also I feel like I've been getting worse and worse at keeping up with the other people in my life. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination, but I feel like people are taking it personally.
Oh, well, not me, because I would say my first thought to that is like, that's not really your responsibility right now,
but we never
though.
talk outside of the podcast.
True, but sometimes we're a little better than others. But I mean, in general, that's what I was thinking, is like just my response to that is like, it's not really your responsibility right now to try and make sure you keep up with everybody. Your responsibility is to get through this.
But my responsibility is to make sure that all my friends stay afloat. And
I know,
I'm
your responsibility
single-handedly
is to keep everybody happy like a good little people pleaser.
Oh my God, it's so true. So yeah, I get there at 9 in the morning and we breathe into a breathalyzer to make sure no one's drunk. And then we have a class that lasts 3 hours with a break in the middle.
Oof.
Then we have lunch, which they provide lunch, which I've never experienced before, but it's really, really shitty food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't really eaten it because as I focus more on my substance use, I've found that just as predicted, I'm doing worse in the food department, eating department, I should say.
I mean, both of us are no strangers to that. You grab onto whatever coping mechanism is still there.
But like you, I'm talking about it with people. I'm doing my best to practice harm reduction. I am introducing new foods every week, which is huge for me because I've been eating like the same thing for months. Right now, I'm obsessed with this like oat milk coffee creamer. It's in my coffee right now. I normally drink coffee black, so this is like big for me.
I have also started drinking cold brew on the weekends. You know, just the stuff you can buy or whatever.
Yeah.
But cold brew is one that generally I do not like black. You know, it's like, yes, I love hot coffee black. That's half the reason why I drink it black.
Interesting.
But, you know, cold brew, it's not as enjoyable to me black. So I eat, you know, sometimes it's a struggle to say like, you got to put something in it to make it taste good for yourself. You're worthy of that.
Yes.
But what I have found that I am loving is I get a can of Ready Whip.
Ooh.
And it gives it the perfect amount of like cream, and it's like, it's not super sweet. So a little bit of sweetness. And I just like squirt a bunch of that in a glass and then I stir in the coffee and it's perfect.
No, that's like the cold foam that they put on cold brew at like Starbucks. Fuck Starbucks.
Yes.
That's interesting because cold brew is generally better black, I feel like, because it's less acidic.
That makes sense. I think I've just never enjoyed cold coffee at all black. It feels wrong to me. Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about this before.
Possibly.
Welcome to Pickles and Vodka, the podcast where we talk about coffee.
Of course we do. You think we're not caffeinated? Come on.
This is my 4th cup of coffee today. Not gonna lie. Today we talked about relapse prevention. And one of the questions was, what is one thing that you can do daily to prevent relapses in the future? And I put reduce caffeine because I noticed caffeine elevates my anxiety. And if I'm anxious for a lot of days in a row, then... Oh, sorry, I just got a weird notification that said Lauren's recording will continue on a new track due to a change in their devices.
Yeah, it's because I didn't realize that the USB was not in very solid and I accidentally bumped it.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay,
You still
okay.
sound the same.
Yeah.
It's probably good that we were interrupted because I don't want to talk about coffee anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, that's actually a good segue into our topic
Mm-hmm.
because I have been in mental health classes all week for 2 weeks. I have a lot of material that I've been going over, and I decided to repurpose some of it for the podcast.
Okay.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And as it happens, today's topic will be very relevant for all of us because today we are talking about change.
Okay.
So, obviously, we're going through a lot of changes right now, personally, as a country, as a planet. I mean, change is always constant, like I hinted at in our tagline, but I feel like lately it's just been so much so fast.
Maybe it is all the same and it's just perspective, but there's definitely times versus others where it just feels like, what the hell is, I turn around and everything's different.
Yeah, so Lauren, how do you normally react to drastic changes?
Hate.
Go on.
I'm just thinking when you said that, I'm like, I hate when I use a website every day and suddenly they change up their look. And I'm like, fuck this, it's worse. Why'd you have to do that?
So that's an example of a micro change, which I also wanted to differentiate between like macro changes and micro changes. Because obviously, like we all know about the macro changes that are happening in the world, but small changes like that can actually impact your mental health a lot also.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, if you're used to drinking your coffee black and you add creamer, it's gonna change things up. Like, if you have an eating disorder, for instance.
Yeah, if there's a reason that you wouldn't, yeah.
Maybe that's not the best example.
But I get it. Going back to your question on big changes, because sometimes I think I am okay with them, and I think it all depends on how much control I feel like I have. Because I was thinking of things, like twice. I have spur of the moment, like once literally, what was it, like 2 hours notice before I got in my car and left, I have made big moves, like moved states. And
wow, yeah.
I've loved both of those times, but it also felt, it was just kind of like, oh, this is the right thing to do. And I get to make this decision. I just get to just do it. It's not like nobody told me, like you have to leave right now, whether you like it or not.
Well, yeah, change isn't always bad, obviously. I mean, I also have made several drastic moves, not just moves, but changes in my life that I decided. I have a handout, actually, and it starts by saying, change is an unavoidable constant in our lives. Sometimes it's within our control, but most often it's not.
Uh-huh.
So it's funny you say that.
But yeah, I think that is the difference for me.
Yeah, and also, like, I think going back to our New Year's resolution episode, change is often something that we feel like we need to do, even when it's unnecessary.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So those are all things we can talk about, but I wanted to start the episode by talking about the stages of change. Have you heard of this?
I probably have, but I mean, it's not something I can readily pull up, so.
Okay, so this is something I learned in group this week that I thought was really interesting. It's the stages of change model, otherwise known as the trans-theoretical model. Okay. You've probably heard of this in therapy. The first stage is pre-contemplation.
I have heard these.
Okay. So what do you know about the pre-contemplation stage?
So
I can tell you if you don't.
Yeah, because I was going to say, my thing is, yes, I have heard these, but I'm pretty sure I have heard them like exclusively in like an eating disorder treatment setting. So that's what I think, the examples were always like pre-contemplation is like, I do not want to change. And yeah.
So the first stage, pre-contemplation, is when you're not ready to change.
Yeah.
Then there's contemplation, which is when you're getting ready to change.
When you're just kind of like trying the idea on.
Exactly.
Like, what if? Yeah.
Yeah, like what if I cut down on weed?
Right.
I don't want to, but I'm noticing that it has some adverse effects on my life, and I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then there's preparation. That's the third stage, which is when you're actually ready to change, but you haven't done anything about it yet, but you've like accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
And the fourth stage is action, which is self-explanatory.
Pretty clear, yeah.
And I feel like I'm in that stage now because I'm in PHP, although I'll talk more about that later because I kind of go back and forth on which stage I'm in. And the 5th stage is maintenance. So that's kind of what you were talking about earlier, sustained change when the new behavior is replacing the old. And then the 6th stage is termination or relapse.
Oh.
So termination is when like you no longer struggle with it, you've successfully made the change, or you relapse and you start the cycle
You're
over
back to
again.
the beginning. Okay.
Yeah. I know this is a lot of like information to just dump on you, but I personally find it really helpful when I can break things down into steps.
Mm-hmm.
So the questions that we answered in group was, what stage do I see myself in today with the thing I need to change? And then what do I need to do in order to get to the next stage? So with me and my substance abuse, at first I was like, oh, I'm in the action phase because I have accepted that like I'm ready to change and I'm doing something.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought, well, I don't feel ready. I'm going through the motions, but in my head, I'm still planning on going back to smoking weed, for instance, right after I'm done because it's not a problem. It's never been my main problem. So now I'm wondering, is that something that I really need to change? Like, I have to seriously ask myself. And this is also like black and white thinking, like I either stop it or I don't.
Because it's interesting, like the first thing I thought of when you said that is I was like, well, it depends what people are defining what an action should be. Like, what if your action is practicing harm reduction? Then that is practicing harm reduction because you've said that's not my main issue.
It's not. One of the instructors is pretty anti-harm reduction.
Yeah, I know. Neither of us are fans.
He basically thinks harm reduction is enabling people. And so I've started like gaslighting myself into thinking that like, oh, I'm enabling myself to continue this maladaptive behavior that doesn't do anything good for me, really. I mean, it has in the past, but, you know, when I'm smoking all day, every day and spending money I don't really have on weed, it's no longer serving me.
Well,
which is why I'm taking this break. Like I'm taking action and I'm committed to taking these 30 days without it.
Which is good to at least like see how you feel.
Yeah.
Reevaluate, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. And okay. So I have some questions actually that were inspired by this little handout that I'm looking at.
I just wanted to throw in, because like while you're talking about the stages.
Yeah, please interrupt me whenever you have thoughts because I'm all over the place.
I don't know like what this necessarily means. It's just something I realized when we were talking about the stages is I remember, going through this in a treatment setting. And I feel like the only 2 spots where I considered myself is I was like, I think I'm either in action or I'm in contemplation.
So you're either actively modifying the behavior or you're aware the problem exists, but you're not committed to the action.
Yeah, it's like somehow I never felt like I'm in the preparation stage. Like I just jump from one to the other, but in the middle.
All or nothing, baby.
Yeah. I mean, clearly I wouldn't be in pre-contemplation or I wouldn't have been in treatment in the first place. So I guess that makes sense why that's wiped out. But yeah.
Well, exactly. I feel like we need to give ourselves kudos for that because I feel like we're always at least trying. Like we're always at least aware that something is wrong and that we need to change it.
Yeah.
Even if we don't really have a commitment to it, we're at least like we have an intention to change it sometime in the future.
Yeah, like at least have the awareness that it's like this is not really doing anything good for me and it'd probably be better if I did not do it.
Well, as I say that, I'm not sure because like take vaping, for instance. That's another thing that I've asked myself, should I change this? Because I know it's not good for me. I know it's, again, money I don't really have. But also I feel like I don't have any intention of changing it right now.
Yeah, I would say for me, I have actually moved, I have moved forward that I am probably in the very, very early contemplation stage because I do think that sometimes now where there were a lot of years where I was just like, nah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Which brings me to this part of the handout, which, what if you don't know what you need to change? Yeah. So is there something you can identify that does not match your goals and your own? Okay, I'm going to skip that. So the questions they ask are, how do you really want to spend your time on Earth? What's really important to you? And where do you see yourself wasting your time and energy? Tell me your thoughts on those questions. I feel like you have thoughts.
I think for me, and maybe because I feel like this is something that has come up, at least in my brain recently, that I feel like I really need to try and force myself to put some effort into finding out if I can like figure out if someone would diagnose me ADHD and if I could get any help for that and try something. Because I feel like, I mean, we've talked about before, like the fact that it's probably the case with me has made it harder for me to follow up on it.
Yeah, that's the what is that, a catch-22?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have like several weeks at work where it's just kind of like sometimes it'll hit me that it's just kind of like, if that really is true and something could help it, then this could be so much easier. I'm making it so hard on myself.
Well, yeah, and I went through that exact thing before I got my diagnosis. You know, I'm watching all these videos on Instagram about ADHD, and I'm just like, ugh.
That makes so much sense, but that's all you do
Yeah,
is
like that makes so much sense, but also, am I just thinking I have it because I'm seeing it everywhere now?
right.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that question, how do you want to spend your time? Like, I don't want to spend my time struggling to make decisions and getting distracted and being unable to focus. Like, I feel like I waste so much time and energy, even now that I have my diagnosis and I'm medicated. Like, it still affects my life.
Mm-hmm.
And you even more so, you know? I mean, you've been talking about this since you joined the podcast.
Yeah. That's kind of when it first got put on my radar.
That's a great example, honestly. So, like, what are some things that you could do to begin taking action for that?
I mean, the main thing I could do is I know somewhere in my emails I have saved because, like, the last psychiatrist I saw had brought up that this had been suggested to me, and she, just like immediately shut it down and was just like, well, that's not something I diagnose. It's like,
Mm,
great, thanks. Thanks for your help. But she did give me resources. She told me, she's like, but here are places that do testing. And so I have all of those saved.
okay, but you're still, like, not certain.
Basically, I just can't get myself to actually like take action on it. Like it feels too overwhelming, which again
Yeah.
it's the problem creating more of a problem.
That brings us to the other questions that this handout poses, which is, what is this going to cost me? Like, what is this change going to cost me? And how will it benefit me? Like, is this change worth the cost? And for you, like, the cost of it is, well, first of all, a huge headache. It's a huge headache to get
Yeah.
diagnosed with anything. And, like, what am I not willing to pay to not change this? That's confusingly worded.
No, I think I get it because I don't know, like, I don't know what my answer would be to that, which, and not in a bad way, like, just realizing, like, I don't have an answer, like, what would I not be willing to do, which makes me think, like, then why aren't I actually doing something?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point,
Yeah,
right? Like, when I was contemplating giving up drinking the first time, I really sincerely thought that I would be giving up my social life.
right.
And I just wasn't willing to do that. And like treatment, for instance, I wasn't willing to pay for it.
Yeah,
You know, that's a legit one.
exactly.
And like these are serious questions because like there are reasons not to make changes. Like this doesn't just have to apply to these mental health things.
Mm-hmm.
Like moving, for instance.
Right.
I want to move to Richmond, but what am I not willing to do to move? Like giving up friendships here or like paying all this money, uprooting my life. I am also asking myself, am I willing to do that?
Yeah, and I definitely have when I've thought about moving from places too, is just kind of like, okay, is it worth it? It costs money to move and it is stressful for a few weeks while you're packing and unpacking.
Well, yeah, and I know for a while you were even talking about moving from St. Louis when your job was kind of up in the air last year.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been there how many years now?
I think 6.
Yeah, 6 years. That's a long ass
I
time.
know.
You have a whole community there. And that would be totally valid / is totally valid if you decide you're not willing to give that up.
I mean, now I would definitely lean that way because since having that discussion, I mean, the job has gotten better. Sometimes I do still contemplate, like, should I just look for another job?
It's
But
always attractive to make a change. That's the thing. Change can be so attractive, especially if you have ADHD, I feel like.
yeah, and I feel like you kind of put yourself, you almost first have to put yourself in the position of like, imagine when it's all settled and I look back and I'm like, I'm so glad I made this move.
That's what I'm telling myself now in PHP. I'm like, I just need to imagine myself on the other side. Because there's been times I've wanted to quit. I didn't really talk about it, but I said it was interesting. By that, I mean, yeah, there's the counselor who's anti-harm reduction. There's people that are there because they have to be and they don't really care. And there's a lot of distractions. It's really easy for me to get overstimulated and like caught up in everyone's drama.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true of any treatment, as we've talked about.
Yeah, but some people, I think are susceptible to it more than others.
Yeah, but it is helpful to imagine yourself on the other side and think, okay, is it worth it? And when I picture myself living in Richmond, living alone, making the kind of connections that I can make in a big city and advancing my career and all this stuff, I think, okay, like those are things that are really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
That I would feel fulfilled having that I don't have now necessarily.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, change can be a goal for sure. I also wanted to touch on the grief that comes with change.
Oh, I like this. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but I know I already like this.
Yeah, because we've talked about like changing bad behaviors and stuff, but even when you're changing from a maladaptive behavior, even when you're changing for the better, there is a lot of grief that comes.
Because we've talked about you're not doing it because it's not doing anything for you.
Exactly.
It's clearly doing something good for you, even if it's doing more harm.
I mean, change wouldn't be the obstacle it is if it didn't do anything for you. Like,
right.
I'm trying to think of an example of a change that's like so obvious you don't even have to think about it. Like, oh, I spilled soup on my pants. I'm going to change my pants.
Yeah.
But legitimately, this week at PHP, fun little side story, we had to give urine samples, and I spilled some on my pants. And then that same day at lunch, I literally did spill soup on my pants.
Oh.
So that was a bad day. Luckily, they were black pants and I was wearing a long shirt.
So no one knew you had pee pants?
Well, I told them because I'm me.
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah, that's an example of something that's like not really a like I don't even think twice about it.
And I was even thinking, like this would be a bigger change, but even something like, say you've been in a relationship for a couple of years and like you're living together and it's just like, this person isn't doing anything wrong and, they're good to me and I'm comfortable, but I just don't really feel like fulfilled.
That is such a good example because I've been there. I was literally talking to someone today that's in that situation.
Yeah, where it's like, it's not a, like an obvious, like, I need to change this relationship because they're emotionally abusive or something like that. It's just like, no, they're nice and, I like them as a friend, but that's it.
Well, and that's when you ask yourself those questions we asked earlier, like, how do you want to spend your time? What's really important to you? Like, do you feel like you're wasting your time and energy? But like, even if you do decide to make that change and it's an amicable breakup and you find yourself on the other end happy with your decision, you're still going to grieve that person. I mean, I'm thinking of the man that I lived with in DC, Ruby's original dad.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. And we were still friends. I mean, we talk maybe like once a year. I'll send him a picture of Ruby. I am really glad at where we ended up. We're both like happy on our own paths, but I kind of do maybe not grieve the relationship, but I grieve like the future that I had for myself when I was with him. Like I grieve that version of myself.
Yeah, or I'm thinking like for me in a situation like that, sometimes when I'm not happy with other things in my life, then I can think back, it's just kind of like, oh, it was nice the parts that were comfortable though. I miss just, having that like security or something like that.
Which that's another thing we talk a lot about in group is comfort and how often it gets in the way of change.
Yeah. Change is uncomfortable, just in general, whether it's good or bad.
Even, our eating disorders are comfortable. Our addictions are comfortable as much as they can be destroying our lives. Like you said, there's a reason we stay with them. It's what we know. It's comfortable. And it's hard to explain to people that haven't gone through it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to say about that?
I feel like if people don't understand that, like, if you can just try and think of it in the same way as like a change that you do understand, like you said, everything is doing something good for you, and staying the same is always more comfortable. So it really is like similar to thinking like, am I going to move to a better place? And it's like, oh, it's going to be so stressful.
Like, I know my neighborhood by now.
So yeah, it's like you can sit where you are and you can be like, I have my room set up how I like.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm going to go to bed in the same spot. I know right where it is.
Yeah. Which, this is kind of off topic, but I feel like I've always been one to constantly rearrange my apartment or like my room. And the reason I do that is because, like, one, I'm fairly comfortable with those kind of changes because, like, we moved around so much as kids. Also, I have ADHD, and I like my environment to be constantly changing. But like the room I have now has stayed the same for over a year, which is like pretty significant for me. And when I think about changing it, I start questioning myself.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't know, but that's how I've felt like when we talked about before, and sometimes more recently when I've thought about like making another like big move, like, is St. Louis my place, or do I have another big move coming up? Because I do get restless in places, I've noticed. And I think, yeah, I feel that, but also, yeah, also things are comfortable.
Sometimes we just want to change for change's sake,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is not always the right decision. Like, I like that you used the word restless.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you shouldn't change.
Yeah. Sometimes
not to should on myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I want to quit PHP. I want to, well, I guess that would be going back to my old ways.
Yeah.
What's an example of something you want to change that you probably shouldn't, if you can think of anything? I mean, self-sabotage, like being in relationships, for instance, if you're used to being single and you're in a relationship where like they treat you right, you might still feel restless. I mean, I'm describing something I've felt in the past.
Yeah, no, that is good, because I mean, that is kind of like, that comes about maybe from like the beginning of a change, like you're starting to experience it and it suddenly feels like weird and foreign, and you're just like, I want to go back to what I know.
Exactly. And again, like, it seems so obvious. Like, obviously, it's good to be in a stable, safe relationship. Obviously, it's good to be sober from like alcohol for me.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I shouldn't be taking Benadryl because I abuse it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in my head, but I still don't want to do it. Like, I feel like I can't.
Contemplation.
Someone's been taking notes. It's really hard to give up what's comfortable to you, even if you know it's not good for you.
And just the idea of change in general, it's just a hard thing. I mean, you can take it back to like fucking science, where, you know, the idea of like inertia and stuff like that. It's just like nothing wants to change.
Wait, I was terrible at science in school. Like, what's inertia again?
Inertia is like momentum.
Okay.
And I realized as I was saying that, I'm not sure, I wasn't really good at science either, so I don't know like the specific word, but I'm thinking of like one of the laws of science is like a body at rest wants to stay at rest.
Wait, I'm looking it up. Inertia is the tendency of an object to resist a change in its state of motion.
Okay. Yeah, inertia would be, I mean, I don't think this is actually accurate because, again, bad at science, but I'm thinking the idea of like how hard it is to get a speeding train to stop.
Yeah. Or like, the example that Google is giving me is morning sleep inertia, the feeling of grogginess that can last for a few hours after waking up.
Uh-huh. I think we've experienced that.
Yeah. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Fucking science.
Because on the opposite side, like I said, the body at rest wants to stay at rest. That's what I always picture, you know, just like a huge boulder. And it's just kind of like, if you're behind pushing it, then it's like hard to get it to like actually start going. But once it's rolling, then it's like, okay, it's easy to keep it rolling. But at first, yeah, that big boulder is sitting there like, fuck no, I'm not going to change. I'm going to stay right here.
Oh man. Yeah, that is basically how I am in the middle of addiction. I mean, when I'm in the pre-contemplation phase, I'm comfortable where I'm at.
Me too. I feel like you guys have witnessed me like actually saying that before the year I went to treatment.
Yeah, recovery isn't for me. It's for other people, but not for me.
Yeah, and like the months before in the podcast, that was always me just being like, yeah, no, this is just my life.
Well, yeah, and
deal with
it took you so many months and so many tiny little steps to get to where you are now. And even now, you might feel like you're still not changing as fast as you think you should, but I would argue if you try to change too fast, it's not going to be sustainable.
I agree with that.
Yeah, like change should happen slowly if you have any control over it, I think.
Yeah, because I think otherwise you're just expecting immediate gratification. And I don't think that's usually shown to work too well.
And yeah, another thing that this paper talks about is what if you don't like what change has done to you in the past? And what if that prevents you from changing? I'm trying to think of an example.
I know, I'm trying to think on that too.
Well, like going back to the moving example, I've moved so many times in the past. Like when I moved to Seattle, I was expecting it to be this. Well, I did kind of move there to kill myself. But there was a time when I was expecting it to change my life. Like any new beginning, I go in with so many expectations and then it just doesn't pan out. And so I'm really hesitant to make changes in the future because I don't want to get disappointed.
Yeah. So I've been, listening to some of our old episodes, and there's one where I mentioned the fact that at one point, after going to college for a year and a half, I think I thought that I knew, like, I've discovered what my major should be, and I'm going to change it, and I am going to enroll in this college that's, specifically dedicated to that major. And I went there, and by midway through my second day of classes, I was just like, I do not like this, and I can't do this the rest of my life, and I have to leave here. And the third day I withdrew from all classes.
Oh my God, yeah. That's a perfect segue into how I want to wrap up, which is I have been transcribing my old journals from 2009, 2010, 2011. It's been really painful.
Yeah.
But
no, I thought we were going to get through without you doing this.
Oh, you didn't even talk about Pico's health scare.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, I know about it, but the listeners don't. We can talk about it next time, if you want.
Oh, I'm going to miss something else too. I just want to say right now, even though we'll talk about it more next time too, because I'm not at my home and I had this sitting out to remember to talk about it. I got a pickle ornament from Orion.
Oh my God. Yes. I feel like I have two at this point.
Yeah, I felt bad because I mean, it was sent like a month ago, but I only feel so bad about that. I don't check my mail often, but also that would be when like St. Louis got hit by the huge snowstorm and we literally didn't get mail for 2 weeks. So it hasn't been sitting there as long as it seems, but yes.
Shout out to Orion.
I have it, and yes, and when I get back, I want to read like the postcard because it was really sweet.
I owe Orion a letter. I owe Janai a letter. I actually have a letter for you sitting in an envelope.
Oh, wow.
That I have not mailed. It's so bad. I am really bad. That's one thing I want to change.
I totally interrupted and derailed us. What were we talking about?
I mean, we were just talking about my old journals, and you were talking about your major, which made me start thinking of, like, there's a journal entry in 2009 when I'm in high school, and I write about how I've discovered that I want to study child psychology because I don't want kids to have to go through what I'm going through. And this is my life's calling. I'm so passionate about it. And that didn't even last 6 months.
Yeah.
There's so many times in these journals where I think I reach a conclusion and then, a few pages later, I feel totally different about it.
Yes.
And maybe in a future episode, I'll read some of them, not today, but it's just so wild.
Yeah, I feel like I've done that so much that I think sometimes when I do think of a big change, like that makes me gun shy towards a big change. Because, like I'm talking about buying a condo.
Yes.
For my next move. And when I first thought that, then it was just like, oh, that's a huge decision, though. You're probably going to regret that. Just made me immediately want to back off. It's like, hang on, I got to think. Do I really want this? Is this idea sticking?
Maybe you should go through the stages of change.
Who is that? Fang agrees?
It's always been Fang.
I figured. I feel like he's always the vocalist.
Oh my God, that's funny. But yeah, I think it's fine if you are in the contemplation phase to like sit there a while.
Yes.
Because that will keep you from making changes that you might not be equipped to make or that you might regret. But at the end of the day, I think whatever changes you make, there's going to be more changes after that. Change is constant. Everyone's going to go through change whether they want to or not. And that's just life. So like maybe don't take it so seriously, or like
don't think it's an end all be all.
Yeah, because even if you make a change you regret, guess what? You can always change again.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about change. Like it never ends.
Right.
You can change as many times as you want. I can buzz my head tomorrow.
And then your hair keeps growing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't really have any other thoughts. There's a lot of places this conversation could go with our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited to hear what y'all think. For the poll, I mean, I was going to say, what are you trying to change? But that kind of seems like our New Year's resolution question.
I was thinking of something related to the stages.
Like, what stage of change do you think you're in?
I was just going to say, what stage do you think you're in and what would it take to get you to the next stage?
I love that. That's perfect. So, yeah, you'll have a few weeks to answer that. And then by the time this comes out, you will have a few days to answer our current poll, which is how has money affected your mental health? And or is there something you wish you were taught about finances?
Yeah.
We already have one voicemail.
Cool.
So
we would love to bitch about money some more.
Exactly. So yeah, you can send us a text message on our Instagram or Facebook, or we keep forgetting to mention, but we have an email address. It's picklesandvodkapodcast@gmail.com. You can always send your answers there. To leave a voicemail, go to speakpipe.com/picklesandvodka. Really looking forward to your answers.
Yeah.
And that's the show. I'm going to go change now because I'm sweaty.
I'm going to change too because I need to take a shower.
Love that.
I will change my cleanliness and then my clothes.
We're changing in real time, y'all. And so are you.
As you're listening to this, we're probably changing.
In fact, you've changed in the time it took to listen to this episode.
These are so many like corny phrases we're ending with.
Yeah, but they're used to it by now.
Yeah.
All right, bye, guys.
All right, bye.
If you like what you heard, tell a friend about the podcast. You can direct them to picklesandvodka.substack.com, where you can find our entire back catalog and links to all our social media. We love hearing from our listeners, so send us a voice message at speakpipe.com/picklesandvodka or DM us at Pickles and Vodka Podcast on Instagram. My personal account is at XtinaJumper and Lauren is at Lauren3_AFH. We'll see you next week.